Let's talk about how we can use Windows to run the applications we use in our course. The first thing you need to do is install the Windows Subsystem for Linux, which provides us with a copy of the Ubuntu command line, essentially Ubuntu server running on Windows. Then we can install our programs into there the same way we did on Cloud9 or on EC2. All right, so let's begin by seeing how to install WSL. Hey Cortana, how do I install WSL? And she takes you to a link which is made by Windows, so you can be sure it's right, and you just follow it. They got it for you. Okay. One thing to be sure about. Hey Cortana, Windows Store.
All right, starting store.
And then in the Windows Store, search for WSL, and you can get the free Ubuntu application, 1604, not 1804, but it's good enough for us. It's built by Canonical, who was the same people who build all of our Ubuntu stuff, so it's good. Then once you've got that, you want to open a command line and you type WSL, and then you're in the Windows Subsystem for Linux, which you can see it gives you access to Linux, but it also gives you access to your C drive or to your D drive on your system. But you don't have to look at things that way. In fact, I wouldn't look at things that way. I would just go home, and then once you're there, you're in your home directory. Everything's the same as it would be normally. You can create a Git directory. You know how to do that, mkdir git, and then you can install your repository. As you can see, I actually install my repositories on the D drive. And then I create a symbolic link to it. So let's talk about that for a second. Let's see what's really going on. To me, right, to me it just looks like directories, but they're symbolic links to places on the Windows drives. And we want the link to the places on the Windows drive because we want to give the GUI apps, Windows GUI applications, access to the files in our projects. When we're inside this world, the world that's built based on home slash whatever your username is, then that is not accessible to the Windows file system. It's only the parts that are on Mount C and Mount D that give you access to the Windows file system so that the GUI can see it. They can't see this part of the system, so that these files are protected from Windows, which is what we want, but we, in some cases, want that half and half world. So in order to get things going, you want to make sure that you've installed Git on your Windows world. You just search on Git, right? If you search for Git, almost the first thing you find is this site. And then you just download Git and install it. It's all a four-head install. You just go do the darn thing. Okay, then once you've got Git installed, then what you can do is open up, what I like to do is open up actually another command prompt. And then what I'm going to do here is I'll go into my Git directory on my C drive, not on my D drive. And then you can see that there's JS objects there. Now, if we switch back into our WSL world for a second, I can go to that same place, and there's that same folder, JS objects. This is one way of looking at that folder on that drive, on the C drive, and this is another way of looking at it, okay? Then what I tend to do, and I'm going to go to my cheat sheet for a second here, is I clone, using the HTTP method, the repository. So I'll go ahead and clone it. And the first time you do this, a little dialog might pop up and it might prompt you for your username and password on GitHub, and go ahead and enter that. And now we're basically done with the Windows command prompt. We just type exit. We don't want to mess with it anymore, I don't think. Okay. But we not only want to close our view of the Windows file system from over there, not because we couldn't use it for other purposes, but because we don't want to use it to modify our files. We also don't really like this Mount C Git view. You can run into problems with it that you won't run into if you're inside the Linux file system proper. So I go back here, I go here to Git, and now my problem is that I don't have a link to that version of I've got my normal link here, which is actually on my D drive to my Prog 272 repository. But I want the one we just downloaded on the C drive because I'm trying to show you something, right? I'm trying to explain what you need to do on your end. So I'll go back to my cheat sheet here and let's set up a link between us and that file. So we go, let's create a symbolic link, that's what the ln-s is, to mount C git prog 272. That's the repository we just loaded, and let's call it PC2 so the name doesn't conflict with the one I've already got here. So now I've made this link, and I'll go it and, well, let me show it to you. So now you can see PC2 links to the C prog 272, the repository we just downloaded, and then here's the other one, which goes to the one on the D drive. C drive, D drive. So this is the one we want right now because it's the one we're working with. So I'll go into here and then I want to check out the URL I've got. Now we don't like working with these HTTPS because we prefer working with SSH. So we want to change the URL for this. We used the HTTPS so we didn't have to mess with SSH on Windows. You could get it sorted. My goal here, I'm not the Windows guy. I'm the Hey Cortana guy, right? That's all I know about Windows. And that's all I want to know about it. And the rest of the time, I just want to be in my happy world. So I'll go back to my cheat sheet and I'll use this command right here. And what this does is I'm going to set the origin to not HTTPS, but to our SSH world. Because so I don't have to worry about usernames and passwords. And I'm going to press enter. And now I'll run my git remote v, and you can see that I'm now pushing and pulling from the right place. And I'm inside my file system, so I can see my repository and all its projects, but I don't need to worry about anything else. I can just sit here and do things with Linux, okay? And then when I want to do things in Windows, what I do is I do it only with the GUI app. So on Windows, I use Visual Studio Code. It's totally open source. It's fits in with the thinking of our class, even more so in some ways than WebStorm does. And now I'm going to open a folder, and forgive me, I'm going to switch away from the Git C drive one. I'm going to go to the one on the D drive, and I'll open up um, a project. And I'm going to open up the project called Express Basics, okay? And so now I've opened that up, and I'll open up a file inside of it, okay? And now I'm going to come back here to the command line, and I'm going to go now to I'm going to go now to my real repository, not the one we just downloaded, so I don't have to do long installs of anything. And I'm going to go into the week '02 Express Basics folder where we are, and I'm going to type npm start. I'm going to start my project. I'm going to come over to the browser. I'm going to go to 30025, and there's my project running there. Now, if I come back to the editor for a second and I make a change inside of it, and save it, and then I do a refresh here, you can see the change actually is getting read. It's actually working for us so that we're able to change our files. Then now I can back out of the editor if I want to, and I can come back to the command line, and oh, I couldn't find my fave icon. Oh well, there it is. Long story made short. All right, so that's working fine for us. So that's all we really need to know. And then if we want, we can do a git status, and we can see which files have changed in our project, which in this case is the a couple other ones that I'm currently working on. But you can see also that the git diff on routes index.js shows the change we just made. It was this, and it's been changed to that. And then I could push that if I wanted to, but I really don't want to right now, so I'm not going to. But there's nothing different. It would just be git add, git commit, git push. Everything works the same. Line endings are right. Slashes and backslashes. You don't need to worry about any of that stuff when you're over here. Windows developers spend, I don't know, they tell me when I was a Windows developer, when I developed on Windows, I spent, I don't know, 10-20% of my time just worrying about line endings and forward slashes and backslashes. And I don't need to worry about it here because I do my work inside editors, which can be told to preserve the Linux line endings, and I do my work in here where it won't mess it up. Okay, so then the other thing we want to look at for just a second is Android Studio. So you need to install Android Studio. Hey Cortana, how do I install Android Studio? And you can see there's a link down here, install Android Studio, and they tell you how to download the latest version, and you press the download button and it's a four-head install from there. So I'll just let Cortana handle that task for you. And then once it's installed, there is one kind of tricky thing you need to do. When you go to the Tools menu, you can see these are the parts we want, the AVD Manager and the SDK Manager. We don't really want anything else out of Android Studio, which is the same IDE as WebStorm, by the way. I think you can see it's all the same, but we're not going to use it, and I don't think you should use it. But you want these two tools. Now, a funny thing happens here. When I close the project and say I open up this project here, when I come over here and I go to the Tools menu, do you see how they're gone? That's because this is not an Android project. This doesn't happen on Linux, but it does on Windows. And then I can close the project and go back. So how did I create my application? Start a new Android Studio project, and that creates just one project with the Tools menu set up so you can open up the SDK here and install Android, and you can go to Tools and you can bring up the AVD manager and you can start what is now our third emulator for a phone. And you can get that guy up and running. Um, and then I would leave this puppy running and I'd leave that guy up there. Then we're going to come back to our command line and we're going to go from here to our React Native Starter project, okay? And then we're just going to type npm start, and then we'll have the emulator running over here, right? And we're starting our project over here. And I don't think we even need, I mean, we can just keep that minimized, right? So we've got the emulator over here, and down here we're running the project itself. All I did was type npm start. Then we can choose this press A to open Android device or emulator. So I press A and I'm not sure exactly what happened there. That's a little unusual. Let me try it again. We're going to press A. This is lovely. All right, I'm going to try it one more time. And if it doesn't want to do it, I'm going to pause for a second and see if I can work my way through it. There it goes. And that time it just popped up and it ran on there. And that's my usual experience. It just works. And but you saw that I had some trouble with it, and I just persisted and it seemed to go away. And now over here we can run our code and we can see that it works, and you could see that it went out and queried the server over here. And then if we wanted to, we could open that project in an editor and we could make a change to it and save our change, and it refreshes and you see you get the update working over here. So that's really all I wanted to show you. I think when you've got all this stuff running, you can actually begin to get some work done in Windows using our tools. And if you like to work that way, that would be one option that's available to you. Thank you.